Hi guys, and welcome to October, and yay, we are in Libra transit. So happy birthday to all Libras, and let's see what's going on. So really quick intro about astrological constellations and everything that we need to kind of like work on. Guys, do not forget to check your ascendant and check your moon sign, because that's sort of like going to give you different aspects of yourself. And of course, if this jives with you, you can contact me for the private reading. So let's see what is the biggie happening in the sky. And my astrology is really different. You know, nobody's going to tell me this is the way you need to do, because to me tarot is like so much more potent than astrology. So let's kind of like move into that. This week, both Mercury and in tarot, we have the Magician representing Mercury, so you can actually see the energy instead of just me telling you about Mercury. It's going to move into Scorpio, and that fiery Mars is actually moving in Libra. So Mercury is really, as you know, during Mercury retrograde, communication issues. So yes, it kind of like symbolizes how we talk and think, and how do we really exchange things, how do we communicate, right, with each other, with ourselves, kind of like pulling things together. It kind of like really talks about what we do daily, talks about short trips, and also kind of like trade and commerce and exchanges like of that kind of like sort. Meanwhile, Mars, which actually it's not ruled by Emperor. Oops, wrong, because Aries is kind of like ruler of Mars, but Mars really, and this is going to be hell of a reveal when I tell you. For those of you who know, you already know which card I'm going to pull. This actually is Mars card, Tower. And so Mars is basically all about energy. So when it kind of like occurs in our charts, it's kind of like boosting the activity of this area. So let's put it in perspective, because Mars is now showing up during Libra transition, and this is Libra card. In the background, we just have Saturn that goes direct, that went direct, and so now, if you're on my newsletter, you knew that we actually shifted to new timelines. It was like few things simultaneously happening, and if you felt last month being kind of heavy, and you didn't know what's going on, and you felt like you're climbing the walls and you're just like falling flat down, there was a reason for it. Please sign for my newsletter so you will be in the know. So when we kind of like have the Mars coming through, it's kind of like boosting the chart in our in that area, right? Activity of that area. So we are going to start feeling shift in our daily habits and conversations, and we will become more active in kind of like that area where sort of like that Mars joins the sun, wherever your sun is, and just kind of like, you need to remember the secret of life is really having low expectations. With Saturn kind of like that went direct, there are like no procrastination anymore. I think summer was, most of us had the excuse it was the summer, of course, for those of us in northern hemisphere, but in the southern hemisphere, winter was excuse. It's winter, I don't feel like it's sluggish. So we both kind of had the same excuse. But this kind of like all ended on September 18th at 13 degrees Capricorn. And this Saturn is the Lord of Karma, and it kind of like does feel, Capricorn is his ruler, but it's almost like the middle finger, right, when it is reversed, right? So retrograde motion is basically time when karma is sorted out, because this is the planet of karma. And so therefore Saturn retrograde is a double dose of that karma. So if you guys didn't get karma reading with me, it's very intense. It really tells you, hey, this is what you did in past life, this is what you promised to yourself. With all the wisdom, you're going to kind of like drag in this one, you want to resolve it, you know, like when we can, today I'm going to really kind of like handle this. That's kind of like, it's the entire life chart. So when and what was happening, it kind of like felt that past and present and future kind of like blurred together. And if you have been in the past and kind of like dealing with that, you know, events occurred to teach us a lesson. And Saturn is generally difficult ruler. It's kind of like, did you learn it? I really need you to know. And when I ask you this question, when I wake you up from a dream, you will get it. Not only that you're going to tell me blah, blah, blah. So the lessons that have been associated with Saturn retrograde kind of like really relate to our thoughts and our words. Some of us decided, hey, I'm going to communicate better. I'm not going to be quick to curse. And you're going to see that people will be cleaning their language. People who didn't clean the language, who continues to kind of like be mean and jump quickly to conclusions and to judgments, these people stayed on different old timelines. So what does that mean? That means you still have issues, you didn't resolve them. The bad part is going to last 12 years. So ask yourself if you really shifted or you didn't shift it, or you're just simply repeating the old patterns from the past. This in particular is going to be especially challenging if you have history of teasing or verbally abusing people. And this is becoming very prevalent. All of us kind of a little bit guilty of that. Internet is like a sneaky place where you just want to, you dislike my nail polish. You dislike something. I'm going to just tell you. We need to kind of pull back with Saturn, because Saturn is telling us, really, is this really who you are? And now turning direct is giving us a much brighter outlook, especially for making really important decisions about your home, your family, and relationships. So ta-da, everything is here. And when we are going through Libra transit, it's really talking about a major transformation. So this is where we are almost like, think about it, we have building our case, we kind of like made advances, we kind of like are understanding the areas of life which you kind of like need to do it. The Tower is saying, okay, this is collapsing, and we need to collapse certain areas of our lives and say rebuild, rebuild, rebuild. But then, Mercury is saying to us, you can do it. You have all the tools. You have been through all the lessons. You just need to pull it together, and you need to detangle anything that has been going on. Look at how powerful this month will be. So let's just jump in and see what is particularly important for your own sign. Libra, this is happy birthday time. Happy birthday, happy belated to those of you who transitioned in September. Those Libras are extremely powerful, right? Because you are kind of like bonding with that strict energy of Virgo that is just preceding kind of like your thing. But this year's Libra season kind of like changes kind of like with that pace of kind of like sun that I think is going to go until October 23rd. So it's kind of like joined with Mars, which is the energy and drive. But again, Mars is really native in Aries, and Aries is the opposite of you. As I was kind of like initially pulling the Emperor card, obviously that energy was very strong. So hosting that Mars in your sign, it's kind of like not going to be a cakewalk, especially since that kind of like, let's call it a warrior planet, right? It's kind of like in its detriment. So what we call it, what they call it, not we, in astrology, sort of like weakened position while kind of like visiting that planet Libra, right? So that kind of like red planet can send you in overdrive. You're air sign already. You're already moving fast, sometimes making reckless decisions, right? And you're also very peaceful sign, being Libra, right? So kind of like, I think at times you might feel anxiety, or other people can tell you that you're coming on really too strong. So you remember how I had this magician card, kind of like a little bit kind of like of magic. So you just grab it like a salt kind of dose, and that kind of like a pinch is going to kind of like do the trick, right? So kind of like, thank you very much. Yes, this is it. So do make a point of being direct when, let's say, you're upset or when you have unmet needs, right? So people, just people cannot read your mind, and they will pick up on anything that is passive or aggressive as as basically a clue, and it might feel uncomfortable. So, you know, it can be uncomfortable, as it's you have this innate politeness, right? But others actually will appreciate that you are really straight up with them. So if somebody's you're like always evasive, you're not giving me kind of like the straight poop answer kind of a thing, just think about it, right? Because there's also that karmic Pluto, and we have basically this Mercury moving into Scorpio, so there's like also something to kind of consider. So October 3rd, when this karmic Pluto ends a 5-month retrograde, right? So Pluto retrograding, it was a hellish of the summer. Not only it was hot, but it was kind of hellish, right? So after this, like I think April 24th, this is like where my dad was hospitalized, when it was kind of like Pluto kind of like ending those entering this retrograde. You may have been going through this like really intense moods and kind of like having your internal earthquakes, right? Especially in your household. So I don't know, maybe you had like kind of like power issues with some kind of like female relative, etc. But let's kind of like move on here, what we have over here, because I have to follow my own kind of like preaching over here, where I also need to serve this energy. And what I'm basically hearing is to have these readings shorter. I might have the touch-up or updates later in the month. Okay, so let's see, how do I position this? There we go, so you can see it nicely. So what do I see over here? First of all, you have Sea Queen. For those of you who are not familiar with this card, that would be Queen of Cups. You have Nine of Sea, Nine of Cups. Here we go, ta-da! Mercury card, the Magician is showing up over here, and that's the one that's going in Scorpio. Two of Fire, which will be Two of Wands, Four of Wands, Eight of Cups over here, Three of Pentacles or Three of Earth, Ace of Sky, and so Ace of Swords, and Seven of Cups or Seven of Sea, which you cannot even see over here, this pretty kitty cat with bubbles. So I am allowing the sun energy, because whenever I read, kind of like we get additional kind of like things out of it. So let's start with this. Maybe you have been like kind of like really procrastinating. So you have both Two of Fire, kind of like where do I go, what do I do, and Three of Earth. So Three of Earth is like about teamwork, how to put it together. And there is like some kind of like emotional engagement over here, because we do see this Sea Queen. That's kind of like the one that is like immersed in her emotions. Maybe you just like felt that you have been losing it, that you have been too emotional, but at the same time you just kind of felt, okay, I'm expanding, I am getting more mature, I'm balancing all of these elements. So currently you are on the brink of something new over here. And let's see, am I kind of like zoomed in over here? Try to kind of like zoom it out a little bit. Yeah, of course I'm zoomed in entirely over here. So that's better. So Ace of Sky is one of my karma cards, right? And it's really important to understand, because this also kind of like talks about that we are kind of like willing to cut some kind of like baggage. In your case, you have this proverbial indecision, and indecision in your case really comes from a different source than for most people. For most people, they call it procrastination. In your kind of like thing is that balance, it doesn't feel like it's a balance, so you are kind of almost like immobilized, just like this kitty. Well, it's so nice and warm inside, look at these candles, but it's so much fun outside. What do I do, what do I do? Kind of hard decision to do, right? And kind of like dealing with the comfort, where it was kind of like really different over here. I think you really had to work on kind of like pulling people and things together, where at this stage you will be actually reaping benefits. Congratulations, Libra. Because also during Libra transit, lots of things will happen, such as you will actually really learn how things really need to work. You might be getting, spanked on some parts, on some kind of like particular issues in your life. On the others, you're going to go, yay, victory, and kind of like I'm moving forward, right? So there is a clearly motion over here. Like there is a clearly, to me, and look at this, this is the Saturn energy that is really showing up here in the future. And this is also Mars energy, because we have the 16 over here and then we have 15. So both of them is like really, really intense in your life, right? So you have a 14, 15, 16. There is like this motion forward. This is a much higher gear. So we are not talking over here about skateboard or a bicycle. We're talking about the rocket over here. So imagine you're driving a rocket. It sounds cool, but it goes very fast. And even the little kind of like a little bit on a chart can take you in a completely different direction. So you really need to think about that. You really need to prepare yourself for it, right? I really think that going in the right direction and moving in the next direction is going to be very important. You will be accepting certain things, right? And you'll feel very happy about accepting it. You're transitioning into some things. Maybe you're kind of like leaving certain things in the past, or just learning, hey, I have learned something, I have absorbed something, and I'm feeling really, really good about that, right? So that anxiety that I told you that maybe kind of like sometimes can be done because of all these kind of like different energies coming forward, it's going to be something that you will need to work through this entire month, right? So I really feel that maybe your confidence and kind of like how do you move forward has been undermined. Not so much that you felt, oh, I have no confidence, blah, blah, blah. It was like that whatever you maybe did was like somebody clipping your wings and saying, well, this is how it has to be done. And you were going like, WTF? Kind of like, are you kidding me? Kind of a thing, right? So maybe you have started projects that kind of like have failed, and you started again and again, and it kind of like you kept falling flat, and like you didn't understand why. You set everything up properly. You have been talking to this person that you like. Everything was fine, and then they tell you they don't like you. They don't want to be there. So it's like, hey, what's going on? Like working through this diplomacy. So with Mars, it's going to be feeling that you're not in your shoes. Just think about Cinderella. And think about Cinderella's sisters that really tried to put those shoes badly on. They even cut their own toes to actually put it in. The shoe didn't fit. So it's going to feel a little bit like it. But in your case, you are Cinderella. You are going to get that prince. Very, very, very important, right? It might be some kind of like revelations that will be happening, but it's going to turn to be very positive, very kind of like a character building. Even if you have painful times this month, that's that Saturn influence. That is sort of like saying, it's the river wants to get through, and it's saying, no, I have to go through. So it's kind of like that motion that has to put it over there. You will be getting help from family and friends. Look at those emotions that we see over here. You are going to feel comfortable. You're going to feel curious. You're going to feel encouraged, right? You're going to be told, hey, you know what? I'm your friend. So it's almost like going to be able for you to comprehend that you're weeding out crap from crop. And that's going to be really, really, really important. So what else do I see? Let's see, diagonals. Yeah, you're moving in a new direction. You're feeling very comfortable. You're moving away from something. Kind of like there are like two things happening at the same time. Just because you're moving in a new direction, you're also moving away from something which doesn't have to be it's the same thing. It could be two very different things. You are actually learning that something kind of like holding you back was done for your own basically good. Maybe it was almost like a protective box where you really needed to learn something. So it was like really, really important. And such as like, hey, you need to obtain all of these tools in order to move forward. This something in October will feel like I'm putting this line in sand, and I really, really want to kind of like work with this. And that is going to be really important to you. So you do have that energy of 11, right? That is kind of like sealing that reading. Energy of 11 is very important because your card in tarot is card number 11. That's kind of like putting things in balance. So when you put things in balance, just think about you still standing on a banana peel. You're kind of like doing lots of things, right? And it feels wobbly. But you are going to get it. That banana peel is not going to be confusing. So this basically is where we kind of like get here. We kind of like have this like 4 of Wands over here. It is about establishing that stability, kind of like learning how to ride that Mars energy and how to be direct. In fact, it's going to be almost like enriching. This also could mean, guys, that for some of you, you're going to feel extremely emotionally stabilized. You're going to feel accomplished. You're going to feel, hey, you're in the zone. Whether or not this is with a partner doesn't matter, because even with a partner or without a partner, you're going to feel the comfort. Look at that. Isn't this lovely? The kitty cat has the best possible dream. You know, like when we have those kind of like occasions when we sleep and we kind of like don't want to wake up because it's like too good, and oh no, that was just a dream. I really want to experience that. That kind of like thing, which is almost like your birthday cake, will be happening this month. You clearly will feel possibly very energized. Like that's what I'm talking about, kind of like hearing the call of the wild, hearing that song in the shelf and saying, okay, I really want to hear it. I really want to kind of like visit it. It could be even that some of you might have travel, that you will be opening new options. Some of you might actually engage with a new job, and so this is in the cards as well. It's almost like you're making this transition of Libra and your birthday. This is a new chapter, or actually maybe even a new book for most of you. So everything seems to be good, but it's also asking you to let go of some energy, of some cords that have been pulling you back. That's the Saturn energy. So it is a time to cut off that indecision, and it's not going to be difficult for you. As I said, in your case, it's not procrastination. It's kind of like, now I know. Is it better in or is it better out? Should I stay or should I go? That answer is going to come to you clearly. I really think that you will go in to answer that question, but you will go where you want to go. So that is like a huge, powerful situation over here. All right, hopefully you enjoy it. And guys, as you know, to get a reading with me, visit me at cattarot.ca. You also can actually get a free reading. I did put an app on my website, so you can look at that. And please don't forget, when you're on my website, to join my newsletters, so you can kind of like get all these downloads and hints that I get. And I don't send them really to swamp you. I just send them when I really have something to say. Love you, Libra. Happy birthday. Da-na-na-na-na, yeah. And until the next month, you know that I love you.